Hey there, RC Girl here. Today we're taking a look at the RC8X transmitter from RadioLink. This is an 8-channel transmitter. This has a 4.3-inch full-color touchscreen display. You can program up to 200 models in this. Has a cruise control mode, so many different customizable mixing options, including 4-wheel steer. It is also compatible with RadioLink's FPV system, so you can convert your screen into a monitor using their FPV camera. So freaking cool. This is currently available for $319, which is a couple $100 less than similar high channel transmitters out there. Has a ton of cool features that we're going to cover in this video, including some of the programming options. So if you guys have been looking into high channel transmitters or you're looking into purchasing the RadioLink RC8X, stay tuned. If you guys are new to my channel, welcome. I'm all about helping people grow in the remote control hobby. All right, let's talk about the RC8X. First off, it comes in this really nice carry case here to transport it, which is great because I'm actually traveling at the moment. We got our instructions pack. Looks like we have some cables and other goodies in here, a spare wheel, a battery holder for using AAA batteries. We got a lanyard here. This is the telemetry cable. Here we have a USB to USB-C cable for data transfer, updating your transmitter. You can also use this to power the transmitter as well, and some tools and hardware. Here is our transmitter. We're gonna go over all the switches, how to use the interface as well. It comes pre-installed with a screen protector. I don't know if you can see, there's actually a little bubble on mine, so you can use the additional one provided. I'm just gonna use what is already on here. This kit also includes 2 receivers. I've already installed those in 2 of my trucks, one in my 1/10 scale. This is the Element Enduro Ecto. Just did a video on it. It comes with the R8FG 8-channel receiver, as well as a little micro receiver, so perfect for microcrawlers. It's very, very tiny. This is the R4FGM. Receivers are also super budget friendly. You can only use RadioLink receivers with the RC8X, but it is backwards compatible, so if you have any of the previous receivers, this will work with those. The 8-channel transmitter also has a telemetry port that you can plug into your battery, and it tells you how much power you have left in your battery. You can power this 3 different ways. The battery hatch is down here. Just slide that on open, and you can see there is a little plug in here for a JST connector. This is compatible with 2 to 4S. It comes with a 2S 1700 milliamp LiPo battery with this red JST connector that plugs directly into the bottom of the transmitter here, and it slots in there. One thing, it does rattle around. It doesn't really have any padding in there, so when you're driving around, you can hear it rattling. What I did is I grabbed a couple pieces of foam padding and put those in there to make it a little bit more secure, and we don't get that rattling around. If you are using the LiPo battery, you have to take that out to charge it. While it does have a USB-C port, that is not for charging it, so you're gonna have to take the battery out to charge it. You can also power this off of 8 AAA batteries. Because this does use up a lot of power with the color display, definitely get rechargeable ones, a lot better for the environment. I definitely like the EVL batteries. I'll put a link to those in the description box below, and you can recharge those as many times as you want. And lastly, it provides a USB to USB-C cable. And while you can't use this port to charge the LiPo battery, you can plug this into a battery bank to power the transmitter. And if you're interested in driving with FPV using your transmitter as a screen, RadioLink makes a plug-and-play FPV setup, which is awesome. You can purchase this AV receiver that plugs directly into your transmitter, as well as this tiny little camera that is powered off a 1S battery that you're gonna have to purchase separately. While the transmitter is currently available on Amazon, I did purchase this separately with my own money from AliExpress. I'll put a link to this in the description box below. I'll show you guys how to plug this in and use our transmitter as a screen. First, we're going to take our receiver and plug our cable into the side. We're going to take off the little red cap and screw on our antenna. Then we're going to take the USB-C, plug it into the side of our transmitter here. And the 3.5 millimeter jack is going to go into our headphone jack there. And I actually put a little bit of Velcro on here so that we can secure this to the bottom of our transmitter. And it's nice and compact there. We're going to make sure our antenna is a little bit upright like that. Then we're going to plug in our camera into the 1S battery. We're going to remove our cap here. So cool. So then you can see our screen here shows you your camera view. So awesome. There I am. Pretty cool. To get the back-end settings for the screen to display as a monitor, we're going to go into Settings. Then go to External Input. So you're going to want to have PPMIN. Multimedia video, we go to Video Input. USB power output is auto, and pop-up window is close. So that will be the settings that you need to get your FPV screen to display on the transmitter. You can also change the luminance, contrast, things like that, the hue. And then to mount our camera, what we can do is get a little piece of double-sided sticky tape here. What I did is I just stuck it to the bottom of the camera, nothing fancy, and then you can stick it on to your car. And since the Cayman Pro has open windows, then we could just stick our battery in the cab. Here is our power button. So to turn it on, you hold the power button for about 3 seconds.
Welcome to RadioLink.
It'll say, welcome to RadioLink, and here you can see this super nice 4.3-inch color touchscreen display. I actually turned it red to match my Furrytech Cayman Pro over here. But yeah, there's a lot of different theme settings that you can adjust. You can change basically all the font colors, any of the button colors, things like that. And just a quick overview of some of the features. So this is not waterproof. They say it is IPX4 rated, which is splash proof. Looking on the front of our transmitter, here is our micro SD card slot, a little rubber hatch here. This comes included with the transmitter, and they say that it has to be inserted for it to operate. So we'll put that back in. And the SD card can be used for taking screenshots when you're using the FPV mode. And you can also put the latest firmware and install the latest firmware on the SD card and install that on the transmitter. And as far as the ergonomics and the feel and look of this transmitter, I think it definitely looks super cool. Feels really nice in the hand. It's actually not super heavy, which is great. I think another very cool feature is that you can actually move this whole wheel assembly to the other side. You basically uninstall this piece and install it on the other side, and then move the wheel over here if you are a left-handed driver. So I don't see that a ton on various transmitters, so that's very cool that they are accommodating of left-handed drivers. I'll put a link to a video of how to make that switch, how to do the assembly in the description box below. If you are interested in that, take a look at it. It also provides a little Allen wrench where you can adjust the tension and the position of your throttle as well as your wheel. Cool that there's some tunability there. Taking a look at the left-hand side, there are two 3.5mm jacks. This one is the DCS port, which I believe is to use with a simulator or their FPV head tracking system. Not too familiar with that, I'll have to look it up. This one is a headphone jack, so I believe you can plug headphones in it to get all the sounds in your ears if you want. And this is also what the FPV system plugs into. There are two cables, one goes into the micro USB and one goes into the headphone jack. And as I mentioned, the USB-C port underneath this little rubber hatch can be used to update our firmware or power the transmitter. And then back here is where the lanyard attaches. Let's take a look at the various types of switches on here. So we do have 8 channels, and there are 3 different types of switches. First off, we have PS or push switches. These are 2 position switches here. PS1 is here. We have PS2 right here. PS3 is actually this dial, and you push it in. And it can also be used as a dial. PS4 is actually back here. I currently have this to a throttle cut. PS5 is right here. Next, we have digital trim switches, which are 3 position switches. We have DT1, 2, 3, and 4. And then lastly, we have 2 dials. So you can dial on various different settings if you need something that's a little bit more tunable. First, let's go over what we have on our home screen here. So in the top right corner, we have the voltage of our transmitter itself. It looks like mine's about half charge. Next, we have our signal of our receivers. We don't currently have any of our cars on, but this would give you the receiver strength. We have the name of our model. This is the Cayman Pro. I currently have this hooked up to my FurryTech Cayman Pro. Then we have each of our channels. So you can see here, channel 1 is going to be our steering, and it shows you the percentage, the values here. Channel 2 is going to be our throttle. Shows you where we are in our throttle. You can set what each of these functions do and what buttons they go to, but we'll cover that in a little bit. Next, these icons here are going to be our mixing functions. So if you have 2 different ESCs, for example, or we have the gyro function on, or we have 4-wheel steer, those are going to be highlighted. Otherwise, they're going to be grayed out. Next, we have our timer here. So you can change different settings about this, whether it counts up or down or a stopwatch. To start it, you just tap it. To stop it, you tap it again. Next, we have telemetry. So it does include a cable to get our battery telemetry from our receiver in our car. And then down here, we have various trim settings and other functions. It'll show you what state that's in. So for example, your throttle and your steering trim and your brake rate and cruise control will all show up down here. And then lastly, we have our menu button down here. You can press that and get into all the back end programming. Now let's take a look at some of the back end system settings. So to get to our menu, we press this little wheel down here in the bottom left corner. There's 2 different ways to navigate through all the settings. You can scroll down and basically go through all the various settings in the menu. Oops. Or you can click these icons and it takes you quickly to those grouped settings. So first we have the system menu, then we have the basic transmitter menu. Next, we have the telemetry settings. Then we have the racing menu, which is a lot of our throttle curves, our steering delays, cruise control, things like that. The next menu over here is our mixing settings. Going down, next is our tools menu. The next one is our model select. So we only have the Cayman Pro currently programmed in there. And then lastly is our SD card, so you can click and see what's in there. To go back, you can navigate with the arrow here. On our system menu, you can change the language. We're going to keep that on English. Next, you can change the theme settings. They have a couple different presets here. For example, this is the one it comes with in the blue. Everything is colored blue here. I made a custom theme to match my FurryTech Cayman Pro, the red here. So we're going to select that down here. But yeah, you can change the color. There is a RGB screen here that you can modify and get a very specific color if you want. We're going to go back and set my red one again. Another thing you can adjust is your backlight settings. So there's 4 different modifications here. The always on is when your screen is just always showing that it's going to be at 80% brightness. You can change that and make it brighter if you want by clicking on it and going the plus or the minus. The brighter it is, of course, it's going to draw down your battery more quickly. And then you can decrease it to a certain lower level. So after a certain amount of time, here we have 30 seconds, it'll go to a lower power level. So I had it on the FPV system, so I wanted the screen to always be on, in which case I didn't have it decrease at all. But I would say you probably maybe want to go to 50 or 40% brightness. After 30 seconds, it'll go to 40% brightness. You can also set it to a switch to turn off your backlight. So I have mine set to PS3 here. So when I press that, it'll turn off the screen. Next, we have our sound settings. This actually came stock with a tone. Anytime you press a button, it's going to make a sound. So I thought that was a little obnoxious, especially when you're doing a lot of tuning. It's going to be beep, 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 beep all the time. So I turned that off without key tone. Next, we can take a look at our battery. It shows you your transmitter voltage. It gives you a minimum and a maximum. So with LiPos, you want to make sure that they don't drop below a certain voltage or you can damage them. So you can set your low voltage cutoff here and also when it's going to give you an alarm sound. I'm going to go back. So vibration settings, so instead of the tone on a press, I actually have it do a little vibration, which is kind of nice. So it gives you a sense that you're actually pushing a button. Going into our LED setting is actually the brightness of these red LEDs on the side of the transmitter. Our external input is when you have something plugged into the external ports here. So we're going to talk about this in a second when we set up the FPV display. In the information settings, we have the name of my transmitter. I named it RC Girl, also the language, and about your hardware and your firmware versions. You can also reset the whole thing back to system settings by pressing that button. All right, so we've gone through the full system menu. Let's go down to our basic menu. In our channel reverse, you can reverse any of your channels here. So for example, if your steering's the wrong direction or your motor's rotating the wrong direction, you can reverse that here. You can set your servo endpoints. So if you're setting a shift servo or your steering servo, you can set any of the endpoints for each of the channels here. To assign your channels, you go into channel settings. So each of your channels can be assigned to the various switches or buttons here. These next two settings are our trim and dial select and our switch select. A 2-position trim or dial setting, you're going to set that here. If you're a 3-position switch, you're going to set that here. So next we have our telemetry settings. We're not going to dive into deep detail about all of these, but one thing I do want to point out is that you can set it to read off your telemetry settings for you. Going on to our racing menu. So this is where you're going to have all your steering and your throttle curves, your braking curves, acceleration. Another cool thing is the engine cut I was talking about. You can set whatever switch you want, but I set mine to push switch 4, which is the push switch back here, and it'll cut your throttle. Next, we have our mixing settings, and this is what really people are looking for if they have things like 4-wheel steer, if you have tanks, if you're running 2 ASCs, one in your front, one in your rear, if you're a racer and you want to apply turning with some braking. This is where you're going to modify all those settings. And then lastly, we have our tools menu. This is where you can set the screenshot button. So I have it set to PS1, which is the button right here. Here is our timer. You can have it set an alarm. This is currently set to alarm after 5 minutes. You can have it count up or down. Going down to the second to last menu, this is where it's going to show all the models that you have programmed. We currently have just the Cayman Pro, but if you want to add a new model, you click the plus. You can rename the model. And then lastly, we have our SD card. So this is where you're going to install the updated firmware. There's different font colors and icons and sounds. So that is it for the menu. This has a lot of functionality, lots of different programming options, probably more than most of the average RCers will need. But if you're into rock crawling or into racing, you want to power and control things like a light kit, a servo winch, 4-wheel steering, 2 ESCs. You want to set up mixing for RC racing where you want to apply braking as you turn. This is a really powerful transmitter with a lot of programmable options for you. Lastly, I wanted to show you guys how to set up cruise control with the RC8X. So first we need to set the on-off to a switch. We're going to do PS5 right here, and then also use this trim dial up here to tune it up and down. First, you're going to go into your settings and then scroll down to cruise control here. Our throttle rate set to 0 because that'll be when you first turn it on, it'll be 0. Our tune buttons is DL5, which is the dial switch here. So that's tuning it up and down. And then PS5 is the switch that turns it on and off. So that's pretty much all you need to do. Exit out of that. To turn it on, we're going to press PS5 once. Cruise control open. And then we're going to use our little dial here to dial up our throttle. And you don't have to use your trigger at all. All you have to do is steer. One thing though is that the throttle will not work at all when you have cruise control on. And then we just turn it off by pressing the button again. And that's how you set your cruise control. Hope you guys enjoyed that video of the RC8X transmitter from RadioLink. Love the 4.3-inch LED touchscreen display. Very cool that you can customize the color options. Really do like the price point of the transmitter as well. Spare 8-channel receivers go for around $22. The 4-channel ones even less. So if you need to outfit a lot of cars or trucks with this, not going to break the bank. Battery life, decent. You do use a lot of power quickly if you're running the FPV system and if you have the display on really high brightness for a long amount of time. But great that you have a LiPo battery that is rechargeable. I would say the programming is a little bit complicated. They do have a decent instructions manual that's 78 pages that walks you through all the functionality. Not super intuitive, a little bit of a learning curve there. So just put in a little time to learn how everything works. I think overall, if you're looking for a lot of channels, definitely check out the RC8X. I'll put links to everything in the description box below. Huge thank you to RadioLink. I'll see you later.